might not want it, but you don't have a choice. So, all right. So first, what's the reasons that budgeting is important, or why it's good to build a good budget? Just like shout them out, or save your money. So you're not. That's good. What's some other ones? Chapters. Yeah. So it's important to know what you have, because like if you're broke, that's not good. It makes your creditors sad. Yeah. Just one more. For the $1 million. Wait.
Yeah. Be able to provide for your band programs like long term, not just for one semester.
Yeah. So like you want to make sure you have money to be like sustainable, and not just like 1 year. Like I blow all my money on food for 1 year. All right. But yeah, so like those. But yeah, so there's just a few reasons why budgeting is important. So just knowing that we can get started with some good strategies for budgeting. So first of all, with budgeting, you want to make sure that you are able to line out all of your expenses for what your chapter is going to anticipate in the year. The best way to do this is going to be having each of your officers or committee heads, or whoever does your event planning for your chapter, to have a planning meeting with your treasurer. That meeting is basically to go over, maybe before the budget's made, basically to plan analyze what you've spent in the past for your position, and then based on that, what you anticipate to spend this year, based on what you planned to spend last year and what you actually spent last year. So for example, if you thought you were going to spend $200 on a formal last year, but you actually spent $300, I would have let you a little bit more. And of course, when you're coming up with all those expenses, you want to make sure you have time to allocate some money towards a miscellaneous fund, because let's face it, nothing always goes 100% exactly as planned, so you want to make sure you have that windfall just in case something doesn't. Alrighty, income. So fundraisers is definitely, the way you want to do your income. You want to plan them early. If you try and wait until the last minute to do it and something doesn't work, then you suddenly have no more money in the bank account and, like dues are due or something. So you need to plan your fundraisers when you're having those meetings with all the different committees. That's when you can meet with your fundraising chair and say, hey, what's the rough idea we're doing? It doesn't need to be an exact number, but you can say, okay, we plan on doing like a t-shirt sale, or I know we're going to do a bake sale, or you can kind of start to figure it out. It's much better to have a few large fundraisers than a bunch of small fundraisers. Especially if you're in a smaller chapter, it's hard to try and ask that much time from your chapter members when you're like, hey, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're doing a bake sale, we need 13 people, that's not going to work out as well. Where if you're like, hey, we need everybody and we need them Friday, and then that's it, you can raise the same amount of funds and you're not putting an additional strain onto the chapter members. Chapter dues. So the way you can try and figure out what this should be is you take the expenses and you subtract your planned fundraisers. So something that I explained to my chapter and it helped a little bit is if we do better on fundraising, we have a good turnout and we can support the fundraising, you don't have to pay that much in dues because we don't need to collect that much dues. So if your fundraisers equal your expenses, there's no reason for you to say we need $20 from every sister for chapter dues because you already covered your expenses. And then it's kind of like an incentive to say, we should do fundraising, it's good for you. So of course, once you plan all of your income and expenses for the year, you want to set it up in a way that is easy to understand from your chapter members, in a way that you can report all those funds. So generally, a good way to do this is something called a general ledger. As you can see for this example, it's going to keep track of all your budgets. So like, for example, if you have a social budget, a service budget, et cetera, et cetera, this will show you how much you've actually spent and what you have to spend. So, and then you can also see what's remaining. It's also a good idea to have this spreadsheet connected to a general list showing the total account balance. So, like for example, if you have service project A, B, and C,
to have a breakdown of all of those expenses for each service project, so you can see what is being subtracted from each budget. So you can also plan on like, well, if some our service projects are a little bit more expensive than we planned, then maybe we can do something in the future to mitigate some of those costs to make them cheaper, so we have more money. And then of course, if you have an off-campus bank account, make sure to do reconciliations or checks with that bank account at least monthly, because we're all human, we all make mistakes, even banks do. So it is always important to check to make sure that your account is lining up like the bank says.
All right, reimbursements. So what I have found and experienced, and I think what Ben has experienced also, is the best way to do this is digitally, because it's a lot harder to lose those than something that's on paper. So the way you can set this up is through like a Google form, and you can have them fill out, this is what I need reimbursed for, this is how much it is, and I attach a picture of the receipts so that you have the receipts. Because if you hand a paper receipt over, it's a lot, much more likely that it disappears into the void of lost socks and everything. So if there's a picture and it's uploaded, that's not going to run away on anybody. So it helps hold everyone more accountable, and it makes sure we have what we're supposed to have. And you have to make sure it's itemized. You don't want the kind of receipt where it's like the picture of somebody's bank account that says that the money went out. That's not what you want to do. You want to have the actual receipt of this item, you paid this much, the tax was this much, you know. Just to make sure that all the numbers are more accurate, you don't run into a situation where somebody asks where money's going and you can't actually prove why it went out for something. Something else that gets important is the tax exempt certificate, so the identification number. Sometimes when you do fundraisers, you might have especially if it's a dine and donate kind of thing, the business might say, hey, we need your nonprofit number. When I first had this asked, we had no idea what it was. There was nothing anywhere. I couldn't find anything about it. So if you've never heard of this before, you can find them. Nationals can provide them, and there's a good email where you can send the email to ask for it. And each chapter has one because you're covered under the umbrella of the national organization. If you shoot an email to there and you're like, hey, we don't have it, this sounds like magic, I've never heard of it before, she can help you out with that. And then double verification.
Yeah, so for that with your reimbursements, you always just want to make sure that they're being approved by 2 people, generally your chapter treasurer and president, because that way, you know, I mean, we all trust each other, but in case something funky is happening, it's just always checked by 2 people, just to mitigate fraud and stuff. So, of course, with your money, you have to sort an account. We found that some chapters have an account with their campus, some may have an account off campus, so it's just important to be able to know how to go about that, depending on which one you have. For those with an on-campus account, like I know at BG we have something called OCA that we run through. For them, the big key is to call and check it often, especially when you're working with a third party like that. You want to make sure there's clarity in everything that you're submitting. Ask up front what they need, if they need like a certain type of receipt or something, or other verification to withdraw those funds. You want to make sure what that you know what that is up front, so that way you don't submit it and then you wait 2 weeks and you're like, oh yeah, this doesn't work. We need this and this and this, and then a 2-week process becomes a 4-week. Yeah, that's not good. So just want to make sure you know what you need up front, so that process can go smooth as it can. And of course, if communication always breaks down, utilize your sponsor, your council, your governor, so we can always be there to help navigate those communication channels.
So my chapter has an off-campus account, and I think it's Huntington, but it used to not to be because somebody else owned them. So the checks say one thing, it's fake. So the way to do this, if you have an off-campus account, is you want to make sure that the treasurer has like the checkbook and the cash box. If the treasurer doesn't have it on them, you know, lock it up somewhere. Don't just like leave it out on the table by the instrument lockers, because that's how money runs away. So you want to make sure that they have that and that money's going out of it as quickly as possible. You don't want like a new treasurer to take over and be like, oh, there's $800 in the cash box. While it's a pleasant surprise, the money's not accounted for. So you want to make sure it doesn't sit in there too long, unless you're doing like sales and you want money for change. You don't need $800 in change. Make sure you get receipts for the deposits and withdrawals when you go to the bank, just so that you have some kind of a proof, or you have something on paper like, hey, I did put the money in on this day, it went in, this is the new balance, or hey, we took money out, this is the new balance. If anybody asks, it's documented, you're protecting yourself in your chapter because it's documented the money went out. The president should also have signing authority as well as the treasurer, so both names should be on the account. When you go through your elections and it switches out, it does have the additional stressor that you have to somehow get all, possibly 4 people to the bank to get everything changed over. But having 2 people on the account means if you have a treasurer and they just kind of like poof, you still have somebody that can handle the finances. It's not that the bank shuts down and you can't write checks or anything. It's also really important to have monthly reconciliations. You want to make sure that what you have on your ledger matches what the bank has on their ledger. I've also had it happen where those 2 numbers didn't match up when I took over as treasurer way back before my knees hurt all the time. And fortunately, the bank's number was higher than my number. And it was because we had like missed money going in. But that's how you catch those, so you're not accidentally like, yeah, we can approve this thing, we have this much money, and you have like $3. This is a good way to make sure that you're covered and you're good to go. Yeah. So, the financial toolkit. This is something that was made back in yonder years by past Secretary Treasurers, Kathy, and yes, it was back then. Who was this? It was you. Okay. So they created it, and it's like wonderful. It is also how we sorted out my chapter's finances, because it used to not, we fixed it. It's great now. Wonderful. The financial toolkit is something you definitely need to be using if you're not using it already. If you sent me budgets or anything and I was reviewing them, I probably told you to use this in some way or another. So the first page of it is just the simple, like the budgeting. You're planning out the finances. And I don't have this pulled up because my computer's dumb and doesn't hook up to anything. But we can send out the document for the financial toolkit on both of the listservs to make sure you all have it if you need it. But the budgeting sheet is where you can actually break down, this is the money we're using, this is what's supposed to be going out, this is what's going in, and you can actually break it down. This is where you'll put your projected and your actual numbers for incoming, outgoing. And this is where you can also put the variance in the numbers. The budget report is a document where you can put, it's kind of similar, but this is what you can present to the chapter at your midterm point and at the end of your term of this is the current status of our monies, this is the money that actually went out. So it's like an easier to read format. It has a ledger on there that you can use, so you can put this much money went out on this date, this is the confirmation number, this is why it went out, this money went in on this date, confirmation number, just so it's all in one place and it's easier to keep track of. There's also a section in there for reimbursements, and it has a link to a Google form, I believe, as well. And you can keep track of all the reimbursements that you're sending out on that page, just so there's never any doubt who you wrote a check to, and then that link is what you can send out to everybody and say, hey, if you need a reimbursement, do the form. There's also a section on there for fundraisers, and it has a bunch of recommended fundraisers that are really awesome that you should take a look at, especially if you're not too sure what fundraisers you can do, because sometimes that can be hard to figure out. And then you can add to it yourself. So if you find a fundraiser that works really well for your chapter, throw it in there. So like a future treasurer, when they're looking back and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, or the fundraising chair, or whoever does it, you can see, oh, we did this in the past, it made this much money, this is a really good one to do, and you can bring that back. You can be like, hey, we did a t-shirt sale and we lost $500, don't do that again. You can keep track of them on there so that you don't make the same mistakes twice, or you can continue good things.
Anyone have any questions?